I want to begin with an affirmation that comes from one of the most fantastic metaphysicians, Dana Gatlin, and she talks about this affirmation in her book called God is the Answer. It was written in 1946. You see, at the time, Dana was going through a really rough time in her life, and the number one thing that got her through that time with flying colors was this one affirmation, and it goes like this: nothing but good can come into my life, for God is in charge. Let's say that together. Nothing but good can come into my life, for God is in charge. And I have another affirmation that we're going to be using today, and I want us to keep this in mind. And this is the affirmation: the entire universe is lined up just to make sure my life is good and to ensure my well-being. Let's say that together. The entire universe is lined up just to make sure my life is good and to ensure my well-being. So let me ask you, what if you always lived as if you were always in the right place at the right time for your good and your well-being? What if you always knew that you were divinely protected and divinely guided? Well, what if I were to tell you that if you aligned yourself with a certain type of being, a certain way of being, then that will always be your reality. Always. There's a true story of this young Jewish man by the name of Lazier, and he lived in Poland. And when he was 6 years old, his very best friend was a Christian boy. And the two of them, for many years, that they were very close, and they would love to teach each other traditional prayers and rituals, and they would go to each other's places of worship. They were fascinated with each other's faith. 10 years later, during World War II, Lazier was 16 years of age at the time, and he was on the train, traveling on the train, and he had forged papers when a Nazi soldier became very suspicious of him and asked him to prove his Christianity by reciting the Lord's Prayer. It was exactly one of the prayers that his friend had taught him years before. That's a great story of always being taken care of, my friends. Let's say these affirmations again, shall we? This is a participatory service today. So let's say this together. Nothing but good can come into my life, for God is in charge. And our next one: the entire universe is lined up just to make sure my life is good and to ensure my well-being. These two powerful affirmations bring into being something called divine order. The teaching of divine order is one of Unity's core principles, and every year I try to teach this principle because, well, we forget. We forget that there is a divine order in our life. We forget that there is a divine order to all things. There is a divine order to our unfoldment, moment by moment in our lives that moves us towards our good. Now, if you allow me, for those of you who have studied Unity principles for many, many years, and all my life I've used the words divine order. And recently, I have had this new way of maybe looking at those words where I have maybe evolved in my consciousness as divine orchestration. So, my dear Unity students, for those of you that have been studying these principles for years, with your permission, I would like to explain this principle of divine order as divine orchestration. Orchestration means that there is a pre-planning, that there is an arrangement, that there is a choreography. Now, what I want you to know is that divine orchestration, that this divine orchestration in your life is based on your readiness. It's based on being open to it. Many times we block divine orchestration because we are in our stuff, right? We're in our fear, in our concern, in our drama, in our worry, and we are telling our victim stories over and over and over again, and we get stuck. Ever get stuck telling the same story over and over again? We all have. Many years ago, I used to have a victim story of how my ex-husband had done me wrong, and I loved telling that story over and over and over again. And my prayer mastermind group said, "Okay, you can be done with that now." And they were right. They were right. I have never mentioned it again. It has been said that you can live 90 years, or you can live 1 year 90 times. You can stay stuck. Or you can have divine orchestration coordinate its way with you. So in terms of our unity way of thinking, what is divine orchestration? It is the name of a spiritual law and a spiritual ability to synchronize your life. And if you begin to exercise it, you will witness miracles of always being in the right place at the right time, being in the flow of life. So how do you do that? It's as simple as calling forth divine orchestration and not dictating to the universe how things should be, not being the master of the universe, but calling forth divine orchestration, which causes right connections. It leads you to a proper sequence in the unfoldment of your mind, your body, your affairs. My friends, it is as simple as knowing and trusting without a doubt these words. Let's say this together. Nothing but good can come into my life, for God is in charge. The entire universe is lined up just to make sure my life is good and to ensure my well-being. And there are many times, I'm sure, where things kind of look bad, right? They just don't look good. I like to say, it may not look good, but there's good in it. It may not look good, but for instance, last spring I had a conversation with a dear friend of mine from high school, and she and I had not spoken in many years. We just simply lost touch. Our life situations just took us in different directions. And when we were in high school, we were inseparable. And at the time, she was so bat crazy about this one guy by the name of Peter. And I mean, throughout all of our years of high school, that was all that she could talk about. And she would pray to God every night to make Peter be in her life someday. And so when she and I caught up last spring, she said, "Hey, Cathy, do you remember that guy Peter?" I was like, oh my God. She said, "Do you remember how I always had to have him, and I prayed for God that he would put him in my life somehow, and remember how he didn't want to be with me?" And I'm like, yes. You know, "Did you marry him? What? And she said, "Well, he went to prison for murder." God knew exactly what he was doing, I'm just saying. Perfect example of when something is not going your way, right? It may not look good, but there's good in it, my friends. Your life is divinely orchestrated if you trust it. If you trust, then there is nothing that you need to make happen. There's nothing for you to control. There's nothing for you to dictate the universe on how things should be. And my friends, we need to practice patience, especially when we think that there is something that is for our highest good and it's not happening in our timing. Once again, let's say these words. Nothing but good can come into my life, for God is in charge. The entire universe is lined up just to make sure my life is good and to ensure my well-being. You see, if we really, really believed that, there would be nothing to fear. If we really believed that, there would be nothing for you to be concerned about. If we really believed that, there'd be nothing to manipulate. You would always be in the right place at the right time, being in the presence of the perfect people to ensure your contentment and welfare. Divine orchestration. So even though you cannot always see the divine orchestration of your life, it is happening. And when you have confidence in it, it first works in the spiritual realm and under spiritual law. And much of what it can do truly will appear as if it is magic. Divine orchestration is the grace of God that brings you exactly what you need when you need it. I have read countless stories of people that should have been at the heart of the 9/11 attacks, but things just happened that didn't look good in that moment, but there was good in it. One man spilled coffee all over his tie, and he had to go back to his hotel room to change it for an important meeting at the Twin Towers. Completely missed that whole thing. A friend of mine went out to her car only to have that her battery was dead. She couldn't get it to work. Mistakenly, she had left her lights on the night before. Another man had missed the train because he was helping his daughter with homework. A lady had missed her train because her dog was sick. Another man slept in because the alarm clock didn't go off. So he called a colleague to let him know, I'm running an hour late. As I said, there are countless stories of people that should have been there, but for some orchestrated reason, they weren't. These are stories of it may not look good, but there's good in it. I really want you to remember this. When things do not look good, if you trust, there is an orchestration that is going on that you may not be able to see, that you just are trusting, but that there is an outworking to put you in the right place at the right time. My friends, when you are in tune with the good that God has for you, you are always in the right place at the right time, being connected to the right people to guide you to where you need to be. Now, I know that sometimes life can be tough, and often you might get to the point where it feels just out of control. However, we all need to practice one thing. You need to practice patience. Patience, especially when you think that there is something that is for your highest good and it's not happening in your timing. Ever done that before? Yeah. God, I know this is good for me and I want it now. I want this home. I want this man. I want this woman. I want this job. I want this car for me right now. We've done that, right? Believe me, this is an idea that I have to employ all the time because the lesson that can be learned here is patience, patience, patience. Can anyone relate to patience? Anyone? Yeah. The Bible is full of passages of that virtue of patience. Psalms 37:34, wait on God, and God shall exalt you to inherit the land of goodness. Hebrews 6:12, those who are patient will inherit what has been promised. Quite simply, this means that we must remain calm and steadfast and waiting on the outworking of the universe to have its own way, its own time for your highest good. Remember, the universe is always working on your behalf towards your betterment. You may not see the divine orchestration going on, but trust me, calling forth divine orchestration causes right connections. It leads you to the proper sequence of events for everything in your life. It creates synergy where synchronistic things happen. And the key is to let go and let God. For example, and here's a true story, and I know this is a true story because I read it in People magazine. Just saying. Many years ago, there was this young bride, and she and her fiance were in a boat, and she put her hand in the water, and all of a sudden, they realized her engagement ring had left someplace in the water. They couldn't find it. They were so disappointed, but they were faithful people, and so they just let go, let God. 20 years later, she and her husband and children catch a 7-pound trout in the same lake. As they're cleaning the fish, they found the ring in the fish's belly. True story. Being in the right place at the right time, my friends. Divine orchestration. Friends, most of the time, there is a process that you actually have absolutely nothing to do with. So let's say this affirmation again. Nothing but good can come into my life, for God is in charge. The entire universe is lined up just to make sure my life is good and to ensure my well-being. So just take your hands off the wheel, let God drive you to your destination, not literally, metaphorically. We don't want anybody, but Reverend Cathy told me I could take my hands off the wheel. Officer. Whether or not whatever's going on in your life, whatever you want in your life, you have to turn it over to God's great intelligence, the great intelligence that knows exactly what it is doing. I'm going to ask each of you just to close your eyes for a moment. Let's take this in to a deeper level. I want you to just surrender. And as you surrender, let's call forth divine orchestration. There is something so much bigger, so much greater that is being planned out for you. Let yourself rest in that greatness, in that good. Let yourself just allow that good to come into your life because God is in charge. Making sure that your life is good, making sure that your well-being is first and foremost. So as you just rest in this way of being, we give thanks, dear God, for divine orchestration. We give thanks that the divine order that we know as this unity principle is alive and well in each of our lives. And for this, we do give thanks. And so it is. Can I get an amen? Amen. Awesome. All right. Well, this is the time in our service where thank you.